here we are with another podcast with my family member, Max Downey.
Hi.
So, we were at Holy Grounds before we came over here and we started talking about the iconic legend, Mac Miller. Now, I've obviously been an avid fan for a long time. I didn't know you liked him as well.
Yeah, I've kind of followed him on and off for, since we were like 11 or so. That's about when he started. It was about when I was like 10, 11.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird as fuck to think about.
I know, man. We've grown up so much. What sparked your interest about him? Like, did you like his older tracks?
Yeah, like just the general sound of them, because like back then I didn't really focus on the lyrics as much, and like then his sound and themes were a lot more different than what he did up until he passed. But like I just really like the sound of it, the very upbeat energy. Like I could just go ham to that and just like have a ton of fun.
Right. So like, there's a lot of people that I've talked to, and I'm not going to name names, but are upset when an artist tries something different or tries to go outside of their comfort zone. They want a project kind of like the one that made them most popular, and I never understood that. And I think Mac is the perfect example of somebody who keeps it honest to himself, but there's always this open lane for growth. And I just don't understand. I mean, maybe at one point in my life when I was a little bit more younger and naive, I would have had that statement where I was like, oh, I wish, oh man, I want another project like watching movies with the sound off, because that was like the soundtrack to my youth. But if I had to, I don't even know what my favorite album would be now. It's hard because Circles has just been released, but I mean, Swimming and Circles are just outside of this world. And then also for a character like Mac, who used to be frat rap, who used to be like spitting bars,
the bass, like kind of general rapper kind of thing,
right?
Very, going on like very like misogynistic and just often like very general rap, like topics and stuff, and it goes to like talking about like mental health, relationships, like being at his lowest to going up to like being at his highest. Like it's, I feel like that kind of growth is needed. This kind of industry.
Yeah, I think it should be encouraged more often, and I think that that's why he's such a intriguing figure in the music world. Is that, I mean, you look at his catalog and it's just so different. Each record, I mean, he made The Divine Feminine, which was a love album. Swimming caught me off guard, but like we were saying earlier, there's such simplicity to what he's saying or the way that he says it, but it's something that you've thought of. Okay, you haven't thought about it. You've had the idea. You're on the tip of the idea in your head, but then he completes it for you, and you're like, what?
Like you have everything going on up there, and then he just says it, and you're like, well, that's what I've been thinking the whole time. I just couldn't get it out of there.
Right. And it's so simplistic in how it comes across, but yet it's so profound. It's like, you ever have those moments where, you're sitting in a dialogue of thought and one comes to you that really grips you and it kind of gives you chills on the back of your neck? Every time I listen to his shit, that's kind of where my mind goes. It's like
that same emotional, like just deepness to it.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite song off Circles, if you could choose?
If I had to choose one, I think it would be Hand Me Downs, just because like it's a very like nice, chill. Like I feel like it fits perfectly with like the island weather that we got right now, where it's like you just want to stay inside. Very snowy like weather, and so it's just like has that perfect vibe where you're chilling at home. Kind of thing.
Yes, this album, the way that I described it to China was that it feels like one big inhale followed by the largest exhale that you could ever possibly manufacture.
It's just like relief. Like I'm cozy.
And she said it was more, I loved her description, is it felt like a meditative response. And also what we were talking about earlier, my experience with meditation is I think that's kind of sort of the feeling that you get, is you're finally able to relax. And on this album, I mean, my goodness, man, he sounds like an angel. Like he's singing, and
he did so much more on this album with like his voice and just really utilizing like himself as an instrument. And it turned out so good.
Right. Do you know John Bryan at all? I had no idea who he was until they talked about it, and he's done stuff with like Kanye West, Fiona Apple. He's also done like soundtracks for movies.
Yeah, like I've heard the
Something
name,
like that.
but like didn't really know who he was until I was like looking a lot more into like the creation of circles and like kind of trying to understand like where this was coming from. Because like when I first heard the announcement for circles, I was like very concerned, but like knowing it was Mac, I was like still very excited for it.
Yeah.
But it was like that kind of concern after seeing like what happened with like XXX and like
Right.
Lil Peep and like their posthumous releases, where like a lot of it just seems more like a cash grab than anything, rather than trying to like really pay respect to like the artist's vision.
Right.
Whereas like Circles, I feel like this is exactly what Mac would have wanted out of this album.
Right. Yeah, I think it's the best thing that fans could have gotten in terms of the last release. Now, we don't know if we'll ever get anything else out of this guy, because I know that he was a hard worker in the fact that he had so much music in the vault. But yeah, I don't know if with X and those other artists, if their family was ever in charge of the process, because I mean his family was literally the one that came out with the statement and said that we're going to try and handle this the best way that we possibly can to try and keep the integrity of the artist intact. Now, who knows? I mean, I know that John Bryan arranged some of the order of the album in terms of like the track list, and obviously had a huge part in completing it. But who knows? Maybe Mac would have changed a few things here and there. But I think mostly what happened is that it was getting pretty close to complete.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy, because he had released Swimming, and this was in storage.
Yeah, like he was just sitting on this, like getting this ready after what like Swimming was. Like that was a beautiful album.
No one saw that coming.
And like especially from like Mac, after like if you looked at his early work before coming into Swimming, you would be like, what in the actual fuck is this? Like what did I just listen to?
Right.
And how did he get from Donald Trump to this?
Right. And like even the Divine Feminine, it wasn't one of my most favorite works of his, but I feel like that was like one of the first points where he really started to begin like messing around with different sounds. So that was kind of like alluding to what Swimming could be. But I mean it blew me out of the water. Every sound in that album does make you think of swimming and treading through water, and so I really like the idea of swimming in circles. Like that's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, and like I really like with this how like Swimming in Circles sound like Mac's like absolute sound, because a lot of artists, they'll spend like their whole career like where like the first few albums, like every critic is saying like, you know, it's inspired by this, and like that's all they talk about. Until they finally hit that album where like they've developed their sound, and like then like everyone starts saying like, no, this is that band. Like this is this. They don't really mention the inspirations as much, but they're more like, this is purely them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where Mac was getting, where he was getting to the point where he was just making whatever he wanted, and he was like really like messing around.
Yeah.
Doing really experimental stuff to really like build into like what Mac Miller sounds like.
Which is also crazy. Like, I don't know if you've watched, there was the interview Zane Lowe did with John Bryan, and they're talking about the album, and John Bryan was saying how a lot of the times Mac was still pretty self-conscious about the way that he sounded or the way that the track was going, and John Bryan would have to reassure him that, no, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
You were hiding this from me? And so that's just the crazy thing, is I don't think, I mean, we were seeing the transformation of Mac, but I don't think that he ever fully trusted himself in his new sound, which again I think is always an experiment, in that who knows what we would have gotten years after. That's what we were saying, is like he would probably make music until he's 70. What the hell would he rap about? Yeah. What would he sound like? That would be the most interesting 70-year-old to hear from.
Like just from that, I'm imagining like someone like Mac, but almost with like a more Willie Nelson sound to his voice, trying to rap, and I'm like, that would both be one of the most amazing things to see, but also I don't know what that would be like.
Right.
But also he clearly wouldn't sound like that.
Right. Who knows, man?
I mean, I hope not.
Who knows? I guess it's weird, because I think that a lot of fans, including myself, this is nice. Like, this is nice to hear, but then, yeah, you kind of wonder, like, what else were we going to get, man? And again, we don't have the full story as to what happened. I mean, it's just troubling to think of, like, the demons that he was facing, and I don't know. There's a part of me that thinks that he kind of saw this coming. Like, he knew that it was... I think he knew that time was limited. and that like this is truly his passion, but his work ethic was insane. That he had this ready just in case anything happened. So like, who knows what would happen?
Yeah, like it's really interesting, and like I was reading about how Once a Day was produced and stuff, and that one was mostly just Mac in the studio. Like John just let him be in the studio for a while, and then just let him work. But the whole time he was out in the hallway, like listening to Mac like record each take, and he was crying the whole time. Like, he would pop in, like maybe be like, "Oh, I forgot something." You're doing great. maybe double up on this, and then he'd go back out, just go right back to crying.
Right.
Mac was just like producing some of like the most beautiful stuff that he'd heard.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, what was like your first response when listening to it? Like it took some time for me to process it. Like I told you earlier, is that like I think it's growing on me more and more that I listen to it, and then I think my favorite track is gonna like rotate back and forth. I do agree. I think Hand Me Downs so far is my favorite one. Yeah. Just his flow on it, like it's a subtle, almost, he's not full blown rapping, but he's got such a continuous rhythm to him that you never lose focus on trying to understand what he's saying.
And like the transitions into the chorus as well, and like this is the only song on the record that has like a true like feature. Like it isn't. I can't remember exactly who. I
don't know who that is, but he sounds great.
Yeah, and his voice really complements Max, but like they both work together really well with that, to where like it does sound like a very seamless like just whole vibe to it.
Yeah, I didn't even catch the whole jeans turn into hand-me-downs, like passing on your jeans.
Yeah, I didn't. That wasn't until like I read the lyrics and I was like, oh my god.
And I've watched a lot of reactions to this album, and it's all been the same thing. Is they didn't catch that at first, but it's just as soon as I don't know if I read it or then I thought about it, probably a mixture of both, and I'm like, that is brilliant. Yeah. That is brilliant.
Like, that is so clever, and also like such an honest way to say like, I just want to settle down, have a family. Like, like let's just do this.
Yeah.
And like I love that.
Yeah. And what would be your second favorite track?
I think the opener, Circles. Like, I feel like that was one where like this is an album where Swimming and then was released, and then he unfortunately passed. And his passing kind of like opened up a lot of questions, like what would he have done? Like where was Mac going with the next album? And just kind of like that sort of thing. But I feel like that opener was one where like I kind of sat there and like almost all those questions were answered immediately. I was like, okay, I'm very content with this already. Yeah. Like all I had to hear was just like the first like 30 seconds of that song, and I was like, I'm sold on this album. Like this is perfect.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And like I don't know, this is at first when he passed away, selfishly I got upset because it seemed like there was a lot more people now paying attention to him, and that's the selfish part of me that was like, I've been along for the entire ride, and now you people want to listen to his music after he dies. But then I thought, I think more people need to hear it, and then I thought, it doesn't matter what time an artist comes into your life, just the fact that you got to hear them. And then also, I mean, he is talking about mental health, and I think that is such a prominent topic in our world today that I think people need to hear this work, because a lot of it sounds like a way to cope with your problems, like trying to move on from them and not let them affect yourself moving forward. It's like at some point you don't have to forget them, like you don't have to suppress them, understand them and learn from them.
Kind of like work with them, not work against them.
Yeah. So switching topics here. You're a very psychological guy. You have a lot to say, and as I was mentioning earlier, every time that we're at like a family outing, you and I strike a nerve on like a very vicious topic that you never really know where it's going.
Yeah.
And I feel like we never have the time to complete it, which I don't even think those sort of areas, those sort of topics, I don't even know if you ever reach completion. I think that they're just very open-ended.
Like, we always like jump around so much, and then it's like, and then we'll like find some other tidbit that one of us mentioned, and then we just spiral off into that, and like keep on going on with that, and I love that.
Yeah.
But it's always like, I always want to like finish those conversations and kind of like have a full conversation about it.
Right. what sparked your interest into the world of psychology? Because, like, I think it's just so important that everybody could have some general understanding of it. Because we're humans. There's a lot of things that, for instance, like our subconscious plays a role into our belief system, and you almost have to figure out a way to control that thing. You know, otherwise, it's not that you go about your life aimlessly, but you don't realize how much that is affecting each and every decision that you make every single day.
And like it's kind of those everyday interactions is kind of what like sparked my interest the most, is because as you know, I lost like a close friend of mine to suicide due to mental health like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And like that was kind of like one of the biggest things was I was like I wanted to understand like how did he get to that point? Like what can go on inside someone's head, and like to where even I almost got to that point as well, and like kind of understand like what goes on up there to do that sort of thing. And then also like kind of trying to understand like what can we do in like our everyday lives to kind of like both be more aware of that and like try to like help ourselves with it,
right?
And kind of like have a greater understanding, because like, if we have like more psychological like studies in like schools and stuff, and like kind of teach psychology a lot more at like a much lower level, then I feel like that would be a lot better for society, because then we could kind of like have a better understanding for one another.
Right. Well, and especially since we are taking a turn towards that route, you know, it's like you hear about it all the time now. And again, I think for you and I, we've both experienced, so we can easily, you know, speak of this subject. I mean, I'm sure there's a good portion of people that have never dealt with it in their life, but I surely think it's something to take note of. What did you come up with any conclusions as to things that you can work on and improve each day? You know, even if it's like subtle, just a way to keep yourself in a healthy mental state.
I mean, I focus less on myself now and more on like kind of trying to understand other people, because like after my friend passed, like I had a lot of questions, you know, like what could I have done to fix that, like what could, like it was all just focused on like what I could do, but then I kind of realized one day, I was like, there's really nothing I can do in that situation. Like what happened, and he was probably going to do it no matter what I did. And it was more of understanding like where to like, completely lost my train of thought there for a second, but like kind of trying to find that understanding on how you can like focus on seeing other people, and like trying to come to more of like an understanding and become more empathetic towards others,
right?
To like see those signs and maybe try to like reach out and just show someone that like maybe, you know, life isn't as bad. Like of course life sucks, like you can't really get around that or sugarcoat it,
right?
But like trying to like understand, see when other people are struggling, and just kind of like give them a little bit of hope, and kind of like give them the support, because that's what I feel like a lot of people lack.
Yeah.
And what drives a lot of people to do it is they feel like they don't have any support, no one supports them around.
Right.
Like their family doesn't support them, their friends don't support them.
Right.
And so they kind of like get to this place of hopelessness, whereas having that kind of social support can like, just that alone can help you like understand that like you're not alone in what you do.
Yeah, that's such an important message to relay to people, and you know, I still struggle with it too. But yeah, I felt the moments where I started to place my attention and focus on other people, and not necessarily like still focusing on myself and like getting things in motion, getting better, but like just trying to be more compassionate and kind towards others made me feel much more better about myself. And so I think that's a perfect example of like, when we get depressed or upset, it's very easy to make the focus like the woe is me, which sometimes I don't think it's necessarily that, like where you purposely bring that on yourself, and it's kind of like that toxic presence. I think it's very easy to get to that mindset, especially if you've had like, you know, a domino effect of things happen in your life, like a breakup and then a friend, you know, committing suicide, whatever it may be. But the moments where I do try and focus more on other people, I tend to be a lot happier. Or, you know, my problems don't seem as problematic as what they could be. Like, you know, there's people in third world countries that, you know, don't, like kids not getting nutrients, not getting food. Like, there's so many things that could be so much more dramatically worse than what we experience on a day-to-day basis.
And like, but with that, I also feel like you shouldn't use like other people's struggles as like a scale for what your own struggles should be, but that we should like use everyone else's struggles to understand that like we're all going through this together, and creating more social groups to like, because there's really not a whole lot that we could do right now. It's like help those kids in the third world countries, but if we could do something to like spark like an interest in helping those people and get more people involved in doing it, then like getting more of that bigger support. And it's like that same kind of thing with mental health, where you see the problem where like there's a bunch of kids that have been diagnosed with depression recently or something, or like around this area, then creating like more of a center for them to like come to, that they feel comfortable and safe to come to, then they'll be able to like open up about their problems, and then everyone can like more realize that their problems aren't really all that unique, which sounds like kind of a big thing to say, like you're not special, but like really like we're all going through all of these things together, and that's really the best way to get through it, is together. So kind of understanding that your problems may not be unique, but that means that there's someone else that knows how to help you get through it, and they're not going to have all the solutions, but they can help guide you and kind of help you understand the world a bit better.
Well, that's the weird thing about therapy. I've been going there for a while, and you've gone, right? So I think it's certainly helpful, but I do think it gets to a point, and I don't know if it's just the type of thinker that you are, that there's much more for me than just venting to somebody, because I could vent to you, I could vent to so many different people in my life, like parents, other friends, that I need more than just that. And then I think it also, like, mental health deals a lot with personal discovery, and just like kind of, I don't know how it sparked. I've heard that like a lot of people, like what helps you is like writing out goals and focusing on that and starting to get that positive train moving in the right direction, that you see like you're actually starting to make some progress. I don't think there's one way. And I also think that you don't ever fully solve it. I think that it's always, this is one of the topics that we talked about at one of the family meetings, like things being dormant for a long time, but it's always kind of there, and then one event could trigger a flame and ignite an inferno.
And it's like that sort of thing you really can't predict or think about, but you just kind of have to understand that like it happens. And God, I'm losing my
too much coffee. Do you think it's what's the whole idea behind it being dormant? Is it something that would have happened in your childhood that places it there, or is it genetics?
It could be one or the other, because like that's one of the biggest arguments in psychology now, is like trying to understand, is it nature or nurture? Nature being like genetics, and then nurture being like the environment that you're raised in. Whereas now it's really just a combination of both of them. But there is like a lot of disorders and stuff where it starts off with like some genetic like anomaly in your DNA that you inherited from a parent or something, but it just lies dormant because like with the weird way that genes work with like dominant recessive traits, and it's very complex, and I don't know like that deep into like DNA and like that specific part of biology, but like that can just lie dormant for a while, but then all it takes is just like some stressor. So like with like say schizophrenia, for example, and so that sort of gene, that one is like one that is one of the biggest ones that we understand to be genetic. Like that's the biggest cause for it, is genetics and stuff. But someone could have the schizophrenia gene within them their whole life, and nothing ever comes of it. But they have like one thing happen to them, like say, I don't know, they take LSD, which is like a drug that really opens up that kind of thing, and like is really not safe for everyone, and like that can cause like some reaction to where like it activates that gene, and then it starts becoming to be like expressed. So it's really weird how like that can happen.
I've heard there's people that have taken psychedelics. Now there's obviously a lot of benefits to it, but like I've heard people that have had almost like a psychotic break and never fully recovered, never like came back to being present.
Like there's a lot of cases where people that will like take tons of LSD will have like permanent psychosis, where they're just constantly like don't really know what's going on. It's that weird like just loose state of mind. So
is that just for LSD, or is that other things like acid?
I mean, acid is LSD.
Oh, it is? Okay.
It's like
never taken acid, guys, so I don't know.
That one, that one's the one that they found like the most harmful effects from, just from what I've studied. Whereas like stuff like mushrooms or psilocybin, like that one seems to not cause that sort of thing, because that one has less to do with like more like the hallucinatory like kind of effects, and it's more of like a general like creates a sense of openness and more exploration within you,
right,
to kind of like process your thoughts in a different manner,
right,
which is why that one is specifically being used mostly for like depression, anxiety usage now.
Yeah. Is it like a one-time thing, or do you think, I don't know, because there's also I think of like, what's it called, like hypnosis. Like there's people that, you know, maybe they had like a sex addiction or addiction to cigarettes and did hypnosis, because that's your subconscious, right? Like,
yeah, it's kind of like the same idea with some of what the psychedelics do, where the hypnosis, it's more putting you underneath a sense of just openness and vulnerability, to where you maybe just are saying and doing more things that you wouldn't have like really done before, because you had kind of like blocked that part of it off.
Right. Do they know what exactly is going on in your brain when that happens? Why is there this openness to new experience, to self-evolution, to trying to solve these problems? Like, what do we know what's going on?
With hypnosis or like psychedelics?
Well, both.
I mean, with hypnosis, that one I haven't really studied as much to like, I guess, have a solid answer on that. But from that one, like, it seems like there is not as much evidence that one's as effective.
Yeah.
But with like psilocybin and MDMA and stuff like that, they affect like your serotonin receptors. So that kind of like makes you, you know, that's like the part of your brain that kind of makes you more happy. And,
right.
Like,
yeah.
does that sort of thing. So like, so that general like happiness can like cause you to like maybe be more open to doing this thing, because like, you know, you have much more positive, I guess, energy attached, or not energy, but positive emotion attached to it.
So if you're depressed and then you take these psychedelics, is it like an influx, like a flooding of serotonin all of a sudden, that then when you finally come down, it strips you and then you feel bare again? Or, because, I mean, isn't that the whole idea with antidepressants in some sense, is to kind of like reuptake? Or then there's, I don't know if you've ever heard of 5-HTP. You get it from eating turkey. It's like during Thanksgiving, we all get tired after we eat turkey. But 5-HTP is a natural supplement to help. I don't know if it creates serotonin or just makes it more active, because I tried that. I just bought like some simple 5-HTP from IV, and it actually worked pretty well for the first week. But then, you know, they say that if you're on antidepressants, you don't want to be on them for a long period of time, because then when you come off, it's like your body isn't making them again. Just same thing with like melatonin. You want to use it for a short term to get you back on a regular sleep schedule.
Yeah, but that's the weird thing about psychedelics, is because like they've been underneath like the federal scheduling for so long, so where like you couldn't really do a whole lot of testing with it to like understand these effects. Where it wasn't until towards the end of 2018, the FDA declared like a bunch of these drugs as like emergency breakthrough therapies, and so that's the main reason why like we have all these studies now. Because like all the studies that I researched to like know this were all from 2019, so very like up to date information.
They're allowing these studies to be done now.
Yeah.
Is it the reason we have not been able to make a breakthrough is because of pharmaceutical companies?
Pretty much, and just like the legalization of it, because like with the classification of where it was a lot harder to like get the funding and get the approval to do these studies, because you know, we are still very much in the mindset that drug bad. You know?
Yeah, but
to put it very simply.
Right, but it's crazy because alcohol is terrible for you, especially if you have an issue with like doing it all the time. That is much worse for you than pot.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally dumbs down your conscious, but then, you know, attacks your internal organs. That can be considered a drug. I mean, shit, dude, if you're addicted to coffee, that can be pretty bad for you. You can have literal withdrawal symptoms when you, like, if you've been drinking this for 2 weeks straight. I used to drink this shit all the time.
Yeah.
I remember
I would get horrible headaches.
Yeah, for like 2 days too, that you're trying to almost recover. You know, you're not getting that stimuli that you're used to getting.
Yeah.
You know, all the time.
Yeah, which with like psychedelics, it's weird because like psilocybin, which is like the main component of mushrooms, like that one seems to have a much longer lasting effect from one-time dosage than like a lot of other drugs. Because like what a lot of people will do is they'll microdose, so they'll take like 5% of a normal dosage, and then they'll still be feeling those effects for like a long time after. They'll report like, you know, the same feelings of like openness and just general like positivity, and then you can see it like slowly decline in some cases, but like just how effective it is as like a treatment now.
Yeah.
Some of those levels just stay the same despite the effects of it wearing off, because
that's crazy.
they process it much differently.
So are they happier then? It's like
there's a general like more happiness and just greater sense of well-being.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I mean, I think just learning about it is just educating yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because again, like I think that when you get in a depressed state, it's like you've kind of sheltered away all those feelings and emotions, and that seems like a much more proper way to expose how you're feeling. Like let it all out, and don't be afraid of the pain or the fear or whatever it is that you're dealing with. It's like just kind of let it flow like a river.
Yeah, and I think that's why like the idea of like calling you to be more open is like one of the big things people focus on, because having that openness, you're more willing to just embrace those kind of like bad things and just understand them better, rather than like being scared of them,
right,
and being more hesitant to deal with those things. Instead, you can just fully take it in and just be like, yeah, this is happening to me, let's go through how like I can deal with this,
right,
kind of thing.
Well, that's kind of like the whole idea about trying to be as objective as possible.
Yeah,
is the openness to ideas, and that like you may be solid and sold on your proposal or your beliefs, but like I'm thinking of like politics, is that I don't really get involved in it, but it's like there's some times where Democrats are probably a little bit more right than the Republicans, but then there's times where Republicans have good ideas, and that's why they have to constantly be talking to each other. We don't get anything accomplished if we're not talking to each other and being objective. It's like we learn from each other, you know, like things are always changing. The world is, like we were saying earlier, like we're evolving to the way we've had to deal with technology.
Yeah.
It's like we got to figure out these things. We got to talk about them. We got to talk about mental health, how we put a definition on it, how we can help people get through it, you know, whether that be creating, you know, groups for people to go to, or if we start implementing, you know, these psychedelics that people can use and experience, as long as it is in the hands of people that are trying to help them, you know, no greedy fucking bastards.
Yeah, like
trying to capitalize.
I of course wouldn't trust like some guy that's charging you like a ton,
right,
just to like, I don't know, maybe give you a little dosages of like psilocybin,
right,
and then like that's it. Because like I can see a lot of abuse in that kind of system, especially with like the black market and those drugs like being utilized for recreational use.
Have you heard much about DMT? Because that's one that's supposedly in us already. They found it in rats as well.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but I think it actually gets produced when you're sleeping.
Yeah, like I've heard that it allegedly gets produced either when you're sleeping or when you die.
Yeah, that too, yeah.
Which like that one I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But that one I haven't done as much research on.
Okay. Because I've heard kind of same thing. I don't know how long lasting those drugs are, like the effects, like in terms of real time, like how long it lasts, but I know that DMT is like somewhere around 15 minutes, but it feels like, I wouldn't say a lifetime. You gotta be careful how you say that, because I feel like that could put people off. It's like you're stuck in this dimension for a lifetime, and you just can't come back.
Because like I myself haven't done it in like any of the psychedelics that I've been talking about. Like this is just purely based off of research. But from what I saw is like you just essentially just like almost go to sleep for a while, and you're just like laying there, and the people that have done it just say that they're often exploring their thoughts for what feels like hours, and then they come out of it and they're like, shit, that was cool. Like I really learned a lot from that. Right.
I don't know. I think that I'd be open to them, but it would just have to be at a point where I felt stable. Because could we make the argument that this would always be my fear, is that I would be anxious going into it, and then that would sort of spike me to go on a bad spiral.
Yeah, and kind of just like more causing anxiety towards the whole thing in general.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think you have to be relaxed. You have to be in an environment that's comfortable, you know, with people that you trust. So that's what I would think. I think the centers are a good idea, but would you think like, oh, there's all these other people in here, like, are we sharing thoughts?
I mean, that could be like something that a lot of people have like issues with group therapy. It's just like same kind of thing where it's like, what are these people going to think of me? Like what's going to be going on in there? But I don't know, because I haven't, from all the studies that I saw, there wasn't a whole lot of like group interaction. It was mostly like just isolated individuals, so they could like fully study the effects just a bit more like that, and get more like a personal experience to understand it.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the best way to go about it. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people feel that certain comfort in being around other people and talking about their issues. But then I always thought that, for me personally, it's gotten a little bit better, but I would have a great talk with people that I connect with. And it feels good in the moment to have those conversations, feeling like people are relating to me, but then it's like you go home and like, all right, how do I maintain this same energy, especially when you're alone? And again, like we were saying earlier, I think we're getting more towards this trend of being alone, being in our houses, doing whatever we need to do. We're in buildings, we're in these structures where, I understand it's cold out, so we don't want to like freeze our asses off outside, but we're losing out on that social interaction. Like, why does everybody have social anxiety? Well, they probably don't talk to people enough. I don't know.
There's a lot more focus on social media and like trying to like make a whole nother life for yourself on social media while still maintaining your own.
Do you think it's more of a detriment or a benefit in your personal life, your personal experience? That's one that I can't really answer.
Yeah, like that one, because like it does seem to be like very evenly weighed, because this technology that we have is amazing for us. Like we have evolved so much faster than like previous generations, just because of the fact that we have access to so much information. We have like access to all different cultures and everything, which that's like the amazing part of it, is like now we're reaching a point where we're becoming like a whole global society.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're also like screwing up our brains.
Right.
Really bad.
Yeah, and you just wonder what the hell is going to happen moving forward. I mean, we're in 2020, and what's the next biggest thing? Because that's always the idea with these electronics, is you get the next best phone, the new iPhone that's got 3 cameras on it, it's got face recognition.
Like now we got VR tech.
Right.
Stuff.
I mean, we were just talking earlier about the whole idea of, there's this uneasiness for some reason while doing a podcast just because the camera's on. But if it was you and me at the coffee shop beforehand, just like catching up, like, hey man, haven't seen you in a while, we're flowing. We're in that flow state of conversation that feels natural. And so if we had a drone that could just follow us everywhere, we could hire that motherfucker to like capture our life, you would get the most genuine reaction, responses, all your bad moments too. And I think, like, honestly, if you could, hopefully it would be invisible too, so then you kind of forget, but then you could see, maybe your triggers, like what makes you upset, like a trend that you're following.
Yeah, like just like a nice open experience on the like human life.
Yeah.
You just understand that just through, just cameras and stuff.
Right. I don't know, that's really interesting. Like, now that I've thought about that, I kind of want that to be the case. But then again, there's like, we have to reach a point where we have, like I was asking you, what really is the balance with these things? Like, can you attain a balance? I feel like it's either like you got to be close to not using it all, or you're full blown in.
Yeah.
Because when I was meditating, I was only checking it for 30 minutes a day. And I don't feel like that's enough to be caught up on news, talking to people.
Because there's just so much like content to consume now.
Right.
Because you have all like the YouTube channels that you follow, got whatever Netflix shows, Hulu shows, and you gotta check Instagram, gotta check Twitter, you gotta check Facebook, Snapchat, everything. Yeah. And you have like so much that you want to like explore.
Yeah. Well, I think they've exposed this side of humans that it's truly an addictive source. Like, I always tell this story, like, I'm sure you've probably had the same thing. You were saying that, if you had your phone right here during the podcast, you'd be more inclined to check it when someone texts you or get a notification. I remember there was this one time where my bed was up here and I was sitting right next to it watching TV or something. This is the first time I'd ever like really noticed it. But like a notification went off, and it's almost like, I don't know if the vibration comes before the notification, that's probably what it is, but my attention was immediately like just zoned in to the phone, and you're kind of like that thing has mind control over you. Like, that's how addictive it is. You feel it in your pocket, and you're like, oh, what did this person say?
Yeah, like, that's why I hate having my phone in my pocket in class, because like usually the whole time I'm sitting there and like I'll feel like a buzz, and like, like you can set it so you have like different buzzes for everything. It's like I'll have like one buzz, I'm like, oh hey, there's Snapchat, alright. Oh, there's a text. oh, there's Instagram, like stuff like that, like,
Yeah.
okay. And then like I'll, as soon as class is done, pull out my phone, check all the notifications,
Right.
and put it back.
Right.
And it's like, but it's still that compulsive, like, okay, gotta do this right after class.
Right.
Gotta like think about, gonna grab my phone, see what was up, like as soon as I get out of class. Like,
Do you think it affects your attention?
Yeah, I
like,
think so.
because it's definitely a distraction.
Yeah.
You know.
Like we did this one thing in class where, like, in high school how some teachers would like have the full like cubbies on the wall or something, to go put your phone up or something, and like every kid was like, oh, this is dumb, I hate this, like what, they're taking away my phone, just like making a big stink about it. But like now, we did that recently in one of my classes at Simpson, and I was like, this is actually way better.
Yeah.
Because we all just set our phones on the table in the front, and then we sat down and had like one of the best discussions in our class.
Yeah, that's so true. I think like one time me and Dakota came across that idea, and so I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and I felt like, I had just started, but I wasn't really paying attention to the storyline because I would have my phone out and I would check it in between, and then I decided, all right, I'm gonna put my phone in my closet, and then I made it even harder to get to. I have a fanny pack. Don't fucking make fun of me for having a fanny pack.
Dude, fanny packs are coming back.
They're cool. But I put it in there and zipped it up, and so I think that's kind of like the method to it, is like you got to make it harder to get to. And my attention and my interest towards the game had just heightened.
Yeah.
And then also I applied that same technique if I wanted to journal or read, and I could just focus much more clearly than ever before. And
Yeah.
so it's like, it's literally just the act of putting your phone away, and then you start to sever that connection that, like, oh my god, I gotta check it every time I feel the vibration, or like,
Yeah,
this girl's texting me, what is she saying?
it's like it's just a magnet where like you constantly feel like attracted to it. Like even if it's like, even if I just have my phone right here, I just be like constantly like just checking it,
Right.
like thinking about it, but like
Toss it. It's just
toss it in. And it's like, man, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, that was
Also, I just got stuck on the damn chair.
yeah, that was the conclusion that Dakota and I had. And I remember we're like, we just got to get rid of these things, and so we would both do this. We just fucking like chuck it across the room, like, nah, see you later. But
so glad I could get this on my phone.
yeah, no, I think it's important because, and it also just kind of gives you some power after you do it. You realize that you don't have to rely on that thing as much as we do.
Yeah.
And I don't know like how bad you are at checking it, but yeah, I mean, I think that if I got things to get done throughout the day, but I start my morning kind of checking it, it just kind of puts me behind the ball.
Yeah.
And then I'm a little delayed in how I approach my day and do my homework, or like beyond schedule for hanging out with somebody, just because I've been paying too much attention to it.
And it's already like kind of on your mind, just like already gotten enough into your head where you're like, okay, just gotta keep on doing this throughout the day. Yeah, no, I completely get that.
Same thing with YouTube and Netflix. It's like, especially if you find a good show. I mean, I don't do it much anymore because I don't have Netflix, but like when I was getting into The Office or Game of Thrones, and I mean, Game of Thrones has a great storyline, at least for the first 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Office is one of the most iconic shows, but I mean, it's just, and same thing with YouTube videos. It's like, it's so, their algorithm and how it just kind of like captures your attention, that you just go down this rabbit hole. You're like, oh, well, this has a catchy title or whatever, and it may be closely related to the topic you were listening to before.
And, like, YouTube is like the best way to like see all that.
Yeah.
Because like you'll see on your front page, like there's some of it where it's very clearly like pandered to you, and to like, this is based on what you watch, like this is what it'll be. But then a lot of it is like also stuff that like it'll be pushed. You would have otherwise like not seen it at all unless it was on the front page or something.
Yeah.
And it just catches your eye because they use like clickbait, like thumbnails and titles and everything, or it's just like something very quick videos. Like if you look at like Gus Johnson's videos, which he is one of my favorite YouTubers, but
what's his channel about?
He just does like comedy skits.
Okay.
So it has like kind of the energy of Vine, but in like more of a sketch comedy like setting. Like I would highly recommend his stuff just because I think it's hilarious, but it's very ironic with this conversation about like staying away from
right. Get the full comment. No, get on it. Well, yeah, man. Like that's the hard thing. So I was just about ready to say that what I really like on YouTube is people like Joe Rogan, very influential in terms of me chasing my podcast dream, but also just like I like to have conversations with people. And then I think of Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you know him, but psychologist who blew up and got famous actually when he was 55, so it took him a long time to reach that height. But because of the internet, I can go look up these educational videos where, Jordan Peterson, a lot of his message is trying to push on responsibility to people who are in college. There's a lot of people that are 20 years old and they're trying to figure out the political system. It's like, go clean up your room before you start judging other people. Take care of your house, your mental space before you criticize anybody. And I'm like, it's so true. I mean, we're always wanting to have our opinions heard, which, like, it's good to have opinions. I'm not saying that it's not. It opens up dialogue, but that type of stuff is on YouTube for us. And I think it's very helpful in terms of, there's a lot of people that got their life on track by listening to him talk.
Yeah, and, like, because it allows you to see life through, like, a whole different lens. So, like, listening to, like, podcasts or, like, watching YouTube videos and stuff, you can just kind of immerse yourself in it.
Right.
And just, like, fully embrace that. Because, like, I would not know, like, anything about a lot of countries if it wasn't for the fact that, like, I watch YouTubers from, like, other countries. And, like, I just learn about their culture through that.
How do you consume your news? Is it through YouTube, or do you read a lot?
I do YouTube, and then I'm also on Reddit a lot. Because that one, I can follow, like, specific pages for, like, news that I want to get. And also it's very political stuff on there, so I can kind of keep up with what's going on in the U.S.
So do you have, like, a frame of time when you check your phone, or is it just all throughout the day?
Just throughout the day whenever I'm, like, thinking about it. So, it goes very much with what we talked about.
Right.
It's just, like, it just kind of happens.
Yeah, well, and it sucks. Yeah, because sometimes I'll be perplexed with a question. I'm like, well, I can get the answer online. Or, like I said earlier, like, ever since I started making podcasts, it's like, now I have this itch to check it and see what people are thinking about me. And it's like, man, it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day, It's a product that you have to be cool with yourself.
Yeah, it's like a technology that you have to embrace, but also, like, be hesitant with and, like, kind of, like, more understand that, like, a lot of this is bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of this really does not matter in the grand scheme of everything. And like, kind of reaching that point of understanding is, like, I feel like the best way to combat the, like, negative aspects of it is just more reaching moderation.
Do you think that it's an age thing? Like, I think our parents, I don't know, not necessarily, like, understand that that's what it is, but it just doesn't seem to affect them as much as it does us. I don't know if that's has something to do with the developing brain.
I think just because we grew up, like, throughout this technological boom, where, like, we're all of a sudden, like, growing up with cell phones, growing up with computers, and, like, growing up with all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Where, like, we're going through all of these, like, critical periods in our development that, like, our parents went through, but with a completely different setting, different context.
Right.
So it's like, a lot of the arguments on our generation just being lazy and just sucking, like, it's not that. It's really just the fact that we grew up in a completely different environment than our parents did.
Well, and not to downplay the advice that I get from older people or my parents, but a lot of them have just made it seem like it's so easy to get out of this. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. I'm a creative thinker. I think of everything outside of the box, that it's like, it's not so black and white for me. I wish it was. I wish that I thought more black and white, that it could be one or the other. Yeah. But it's a world of colors, and I don't think it's that easy. And so, like, when you hear that advice, you're just kind of like, all right, well, what the hell am I supposed to do with it? It doesn't help me get out of it. And I don't know if that seems insensitive, that I'm not willing to be open to other ideas. I think I am. I just think that it's not so simple as they make it out to be.
Yeah, because, like, it may seem very simple to them just because they're, like, a lot of the advice that I'll hear is just, like, don't focus on that kind of thing a lot.
Right.
But it's really hard to do that when you grew up focusing on that, and it's just becoming an ingrained part of, like, who you are.
Yeah.
So it's really something that would have to change for, like, every one of the generations, like a whole movement of people, like, deciding to stop doing this.
Well, and I guess, the way that we could look at it is that in some ways we could be thankful that it's happening, that now we're aware, because kids are getting access to mobile devices at a much younger age than we did. And I thought it was bad enough for what we're going through now. I mean, I didn't get a phone until I was in 7th grade, but it was just one of those. It was like Samsung Intensity, so it just, like, flipped up. Those were cool.
Yeah, those were the shit.
And I think you could keep it at that because it's literally just calling and texting. I couldn't even really access a web browser off of it. Like, I could post pictures to Facebook, but you had to text it.
Yeah.
And then it would upload that way. But now I'm seeing kids in like elementary school with iPhones, and so I didn't get a smartphone until high school. It's like, what is gonna happen to them? I mean, they're even younger, and then there's parents that are replacing their responsibilities, their duties to raise these kids by just giving them this device so it will shut them up.
Rather than like using the technology as like a parenting tool, they're using it as the parent almost.
Yeah.
And it's like you have to like teach your kid how to like really understand the technology and not rely on it.
Right. Because I mean, like, there's some things that I think of like just games on there that could be educational, that could help you. I don't think that that's so bad, but I mean, your kid cannot be on that thing from the start of the morning till the end of the day, right before they go to bed. And that's what we know about these phones, is that they interfere with our sleep. And so, in high school, I mean, not only like watching TV before bed, but I would be on my phone scrolling through Twitter, and then the first thing I do in the morning is get back there.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I don't know, maybe that's created this thing I'm experiencing now, which is called insomnia.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, I'm willing to bet that a lot of my sleeping problems and everything is just because of the fact that I'm on my phone too damn much.
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things where, like, every day it seems so simple to say that, hey, no, I'm not going to check it as much, or hey, I'm going to wake up early today, but you never actually get around to doing it. For those of you confused, his shoelace is like stuck in the chair wheel. How the hell did that happen?
I don't know. I ran over the shoelace.
Well, your shoelaces are so long, man.
Yeah, they are aggressively
That's
long.
probably what happened there. It's like a yo-yo. You're just
Right.
getting.
I'll call the fire department here soon.
Gonna have to break off that wheel.
I'm just gonna
Just
do
take
this.
the shoe
So I
off.
can just move my leg and not be like shackled to the chair.
I was gonna say, like, how'd that feel? Like, not being able to freely roam. I get in a position where I cross my leg and I just stay there for a while.
Yeah, I was doing that at the start for a bit, and I was like, I need to stretch.
Don't you think that's such like a intellectual pose?
Yeah,
I like it.
It's kind of like the modern thinker, just like
Yeah, like kind of browsing ideas. Okay, here's something that I want to talk about. We didn't really talk about it much, but I brought it up at Holy Grounds. What do you think about the Myers-briggs personality test? Do you think there's some factual information with that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it could be like a good guide. Like, don't of course rely completely on it, but
like horoscopes.
Yeah.
Some of it's.
yeah, because like horoscopes, I feel like some of that is like I do believe in some of it, but also some of it I feel like is people just like overgeneralize statements about like the signs that people take to mean as their own, when it's like that's just human emotion.
Right.
But like some of it, yeah, I do genuinely believe that like each sign can like carry with it like different personality types,
Yeah.
like that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah. Especially mine is Aries, I think, but I'm a cusp one. So I'm literally my birthday's March 21st, and then the next day is the start of the other one. So then you bring in qualities of each. You're not necessarily one. You're a hybrid of both.
And like if you look at it, like if you do like your full chart, like you're not just like I'm not just a Cancer. I also have like I forget what my whole chart is. Like I had one of my friends do it for me one day. I actually had like the CoStar app because she wanted to like full on like get my full like chart and everything. And I was looking through. I was like, this is interesting, and it actually kind of does like help me understand it a bit more. But also it's like so much of this can just be chalked up to like overgeneralized statements and just like that same idea.
Right. Yeah. No, you have to be careful with it. There was this girl that worked at Home Depot, and so I worked at CGI, and I was like a vendor for like the plant company, and I would come in there, and she was like super into it, and she would ask me like all like relationships that I had with my friends, if we were compatible based on our like horoscope, and I'm like, all right, like you've gone too far with this. There's some truth to it, and I think the Myers-briggs one is at least something that you should explore with, and I think it has helped me understand myself a little bit more. But again, you have to be somewhat cautious. I think just all that it described about me when it came out with and said that I was an ENFP, it sounded exactly like me to a T. Like the problems that I have is that I generate ideas, but I generate ideas at such a rapid pace that I never see them through their entirety. That's me.
I feel like those tests are also like a lot more are a lot better, because like those personality tests, it's asking specific questions about who you are, whereas like the horoscopes and stuff, that's just based on like birth.
Right.
I definitely do feel like there's a lot more truth in the Myers-briggs and stuff, and like some of it, like like it's not gonna be like 100% true, but I'm pretty sure mine was INFJ,
Okay.
if I remember right. And so that one on like whatever website I was using, I can't remember which one it was now, but it was like they labeled that as like the advocate and that thing, and like everything I was reading through that, I was like, yeah, this lines up very well with like my stance on life and like what I want to do.
Right.
So
could it also change depending on a point where you're at in life if you think differently? That's why I think that okay, you can use it as a guide, but you should probably take it more than once.
yeah,
You know, because I would say that if
as a guide and as like a checkpoint as well.
right, because like if you got the same answer like all throughout 10 years of your life, I mean, I would say that okay, you probably really are an ENFP.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know, yours is INFJ.
INFJ.
Yeah. But it also helps, I think, just in terms of, compatibility. Like, I can see there was a girl that I met, I'll shout her out, Beth Samuel. I met her on New Year's Eve, and she brought up, she was like, what is your Myers-briggs personality type? And I was like, wait, what'd you say? And she's like, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, no, like, I'm just surprised that you asked that question because my therapist told me to take it like a few weeks ago, and so she's an ENFJ, and then it just describes like how well we connected that night. And she's like, I knew pretty early on that you and I were gonna get along together, and I'm like, so I think it's good. It could also help in terms of, well, for one, understanding yourself, but what you should do for career. So for me, I like concepts, I like ideas, I like people. I should probably chase a profession that is centered around one of those topics.
Yeah.
So communication, podcast, it makes sense that I like to talk to people. It's said a lot with like philosophy or being a therapist. I like ideas. I like existential questions.
Yeah.
I like open-ended ideas that don't really have a structure to them. That's why our conversations they're in the air. I mean, we have somewhat of an understanding of what we're saying, but there's a lot of things that we're trying to piece together.
We have very like schizoid like conversations as well, where it just keeps on like jumping from like one thing to the next. And it's like it's kind of like this seems like random rambling at some points, but it makes sense to us.
It does, yeah, and that's why I never get mad at myself or like if you're like, oh, I just lost my train of thought. It's so hard to put a clamp on it. There's no way to pin these ideas down. I mean, they are just rapidly like evolving, that there's no way, like, I understand your brain just at some point like just tires out. It's like, where was I going with that?
Yeah, like there's so many times where like I'll just be sitting there in class and I'm like, I've been talking for like 30 minutes straight or something, and then like I'll just stop and be like, I just ran out of juice.
Talking for 30 minutes straight?
I've done that in a couple classes.
For what, like a speech?
Just discussions and stuff. Just because I would be like the only one talking.
Yeah.
Or I would just be like that passionate about it to where they just can't get me to shut up about it.
Right. Yeah, and well, and then the flip side, I think, is, for me, my problem is that I think I can get too much into my personality, that I can find it hard to be around people that don't necessarily that I vibe with or have the same thought process, because I'm like, oh, you're boring. Yeah. Oh, like you have nothing to say. When we're talking about creativity, I think there's people that are truly exceptionally creative, and there's people that just don't have that. They don't have that in them. Any potential to be creative, that just happens. Like,
it's just the way that some people are.
Yeah.
Because like our brains are all like so different that no one person is going to be alike, and like, so you have to like really think of everything in complete extremes. Because that's the only way that you'll be able to understand like human behavior. Yeah.
It's a tricky devil, and that's why I really wanted to talk about psychology, is because I think that we could all learn something from it, to at least know. I think we're getting there. I think that we're starting to understand ourselves a lot more. Like you said, all this access to information at least makes us knowledgeable. We know what's bullshit now. We know that government and a lot of people have lied to us. And we know where we're headed, and we know that, certainly there are some things like technology that have probably messed us up. We know too much now, which I would say is probably a benefit, so that we're aware. But what do we do with that knowledge moving forward?
Yeah, it's like that. That's what a lot of one of my classes last semester, it was all focused on like talking about how like we can be affected by technology and stuff as a whole, and how it like fully affects everything, and how like psychologically, like these people can just prey on people just because of the fact that they don't know to like avoid that sort of thing. So I feel like the like psychology and stuff could like really help people, like having a general understanding at least, could help people like avoid like fake news and disinformation, misinformation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true though, because there's a lot of people that will post something that is so clearly fake, but they don't take the time necessary to go and research.
Yeah.
Or understand, I guess, what is fake versus what is real.
And like a lot of times we don't read articles anymore just because of, you know, like how fast you're scrolling through stuff.
Yeah.
No one has time to read an article, just share the headline.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I guess that could play into what we were talking about earlier about Instagram posts, is that I guess sometimes I guess I'm kind of, I say that I'm upset that people wouldn't read a long post that I made, but I do the same thing. Like sometimes where if I come across a long post, I'm like, I don't want to read all that.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. So that's the other dangerous side of social media, is just the instant gratification. Is that we can do these things at light speed, right away, one click of the finger.
Yeah.
You know, instead of work hard for something, develop a hobby, develop a talent. You know, become obsessed with something useful that you can give to this world.
Yeah, we've just become too absorbed in like trying to like create our own persona rather than focusing on who we actually are.
Yeah. Which I think in some ways you need a persona, but I don't think you should heavily rely on your persona.
Yeah, like you definitely, I feel like, should have like some sort of persona or facade, because like, you know, you don't want to be like completely open with everyone and like let out too much.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be people that will take advantage of that and take advantage of you if you're like a very open person.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which is hard, and this is something that I've found very troubling, is that I think I'm too honest sometimes, and that can hurt me.
I'm very blunt. Like I'll walk into a room and just say what I have to say. I don't really think much about what people think about what I have to say until afterwards. And it's like sometimes I don't think about how like that can like really affect me. So.
Yeah, but then also I think that it's important to be blunt, because we have a society of like hidden. I don't like again with social media, that everything's sort of like this perfect fairy tale land where, you know, an authentic post like that exposes us to say that people are dealing with shit. You know, like it's not everything that you, like you said, it is a facade, and you have to be a critical thinker and say that a lot of this is fake. And I think that was a helpful technique that you talked about, unfollowing people that truly it's not in your best interest.
Yeah.
You know.
Because like with that sort of thing, like you may still be like good friends with that person, still be very close to them or something, but it's just not what you need at the moment.
Yeah.
Like you have to like really like gauge what you can take in through social media and like really control your own like profile rather than letting the algorithms do it for you.
Right. Yeah. That's what I am trying to figure out, is to be as genuine as possible, especially with this device that makes me question who I am. Who am I being when I make that post?
Yeah, trying to be the most sincere that you can be.
Right. Because I think everybody experiences it in a way that you are trying to attract some attention. You're trying to get likes. You wouldn't post it if you didn't want likes. But at the same time, I want to be the truest version of myself. And I don't know if you can fully get that with social media.
Because there's always like something kind of like holding you back from that. Like just like the idea of being like fully sincere and like being fully honest is still like very scary to some people, because like they don't want to be seen as weak or vulnerable or like be seen as like a terrible person or something. Yeah. When like really it's just emotions that we all go through.
Right. I think of also just like people, you know, being afraid to get in relationships that may have had it bad before. It's like it's really hard to trust people, and so I don't know. I mean, that's happened to me before too. Is it took me a long time to finally open myself up enough, and then it's good because when you come out on the other side, you learn a lot about what had happened, but it is still that very vulnerable state to say that, like, you know, you're investing your trust in another person, and it's like, I don't know, from my experiences and maybe from yours too, it's like I sometimes wonder if I could fully ever trust someone. Do you ever get a kind of, social media thing? Are you ever getting the truest version of that person? Are you ever getting the truest version of yourself when you make that post?
And like the thing is like also with being in like friendships and relationships is like you get to see much more like that genuine person.
Yeah.
And then you kind of like lose trust in them because you see that, and then you see their social media persona, and you're
Right.
it's like a complete like two-faced like
Right.
switch, and it's like who really are you?
Right, that is so true. Like, it's not adding up at all.
Yeah.
That's what's confusing about it, is that you're like, well, we have a great time when we're in person, but then I see you post this shit on social media, and
It's like
that's not you.
yeah, like
Who are you?
I never would have expected you to like be that kind of person to post that sort of thing. And it's I don't know.
So I guess, yeah, that's kind of why I have tried to make it more, my posts more approachable and honest and vulnerable, that people can see that, you know, because I think that we should, I think that's what social media probably was intended for in the first place, was to exchange ideas, but we didn't realize what kind of mad creatures we are and how sadistic we could turn ourselves into.
Yeah. And like that's why I feel like being like very blunt, being very honest is like the best way to do it, and also just not react to like that kind of negativity. Because like now, I've gotten to the point where I just don't care. I'll walk up to someone and just be very blunt about who I am, and like I don't really care what they think or have to say, because I'm like that's not their life. Like if I was directly doing something to like be a dick to them, like of course I would be like concerned about what it is, but like if I just go up and say something like about who I am, it doesn't affect them.
Right.
Like,
how did you train yourself to get? I mean, that's something I still struggle with, is like caring what other people think about me, and it's just you waste so much time.
Yeah, like I just kind of got exasperated with like constantly being worried about that sort of thing, because like I've known for a while that I'm bisexual, and it's like that sort of thing, like opening up, a lot of people, like there's this whole idea about coming out where it's still very much like almost a like terrifying thing to like come out to people and say that, and I was just more annoyed with that idea. I was like, why can't I just come out and be like, I'm bi? There it is.
Right.
Just like how people would be like, yeah, I'm straight. I'm in like
right.
Like I'm in like that sort of relationship. Like it should just be that sort of thing.
Right.
And like that kind of spiraled into me just like applying that everywhere in life, where it's like, I really don't like, I don't care what you think. I am Max.
Yeah.
If you got a problem with that, you know, address it with me if it's like serious. But if you just are gonna be an asshole about it and just be very ignorant and just like very closed-minded, I'm not gonna listen to you.
Right.
Because I don't feel like I'm gonna get anything out of that conversation.
Right. Well, it's very bold, especially to open up with something that is like that. That, I mean, there's a lot of people that have seriously had to take a lot of time to contemplate how am I gonna say this? You know, like there's always people that don't even have the support of their family, and I can't even imagine what that feels like.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it really is like that. I think it gives you power after you approach your statements that way, with that validity to say like, hey, I don't care what you think. This is me. Accept it. And you gotta be a dick about it. That's the thing with being assertive, is like you can be assertive without being an asshole. Yeah. That's something I haven't learned yet though. Like I just don't know how to.
Gotta find that balance.
Yeah, it's hard. It doesn't seem that hard, but it really is, because I think just the tone in which I come off with sometimes makes me sound like an asshole.
Yeah, like sometimes like you can be a little aggressive. Like I mean like more general you.
Yeah.
Not be like, no, you are.
Yeah, because you're being forceful in a sense. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh man, am I being too harsh with it, or am I being assertive?
And like that, I feel like that's the most important thing. It's like kind of understanding that, you know, like I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I'm trying to let you know exactly who I am.
Yeah.
And like also trying to like make sure that we can get to that common understanding together.
Right. And I think it's just important, because then you can accept whatever comes after that. It's like they don't have to accept it, but hey man, that's your problem. That's not my problem. That is a reflection of whatever you've gone through in life. And you know, I guess one way to look at it is maybe that was their upbringing, is that they were taught like, oh, I'm not gonna accept those people. It's like, all right, dude, sorry, like you're gonna have a hard time, because our world is evolving to being more open to everybody, to all kinds, all races. Like we're approaching that point, and if you're at that level where you haven't accepted that, you're on the sidelines. Like you just don't get it. Maybe you never will. I'm sorry, man.
And like that's why I like the more like blunt approach to doing that, is because like sometimes it gets you straight to that point in the conversation, to like where you're trying to understand like where they came from, and I feel like it's a lot easier to like kind of like understand that and work through like where they came from. Because if you're like very blunt, just very much like, this is who I am, you have that kind of confidence.
Yeah.
Then you can much easier like have an easier conversation with someone.
Right. Yeah. very true. I don't know where we're at. I don't mean to cut it off right away, but I feel like we.
I have no idea how long we've been talking now.
All right, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's always a great time.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome anytime. Guys, go check out Max. What's your social media handles? Any big moves for 2020? Anything that you're
graduating?
Graduating? Okay.
Just focusing on that. Yeah. I mean, I don't remember any of my social media because it's like different on almost every damn account. I need to fix that.
All right. Well, if he figures it out, we'll put it in the description below.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.